Hi mummies and daddies, my name is Chewy and today I'm going to be reviewing the Strider Bikes STR. Let's check it out. Let's go! Now I'm going to premise this video by stating that the bike in this video is a Strider STR, but I've actually changed all of the components on the bike, so I'm actually only using the standard frame and fork off the bike. I have some pictures of the bike which I'll overlay as well, and the link in the description, I'm going to put the Strider Bikes video, the launch video for this Strider STR, so you can see it in its totally standard form, which is how it will come when you buy it off the shelf. Let's start this review with a little bit about what is a balance bike, and if you're considering which balance bike to buy, is the STR going to be the correct bike for you? A balance bike originally started out as a way for young children from the age of probably around 18 months to 5 years old to get familiar with riding a two-wheel bicycle in the effort to try and transition smoothly onto a two-wheel pedal bicycle, to not have to ever use those little stabilizer or training wheels that you bolt onto the back of your pedal bicycle. So what's actually happening now is that parents are buying these bikes for their children at the age of 18 months old, but they can use them right the way through to their 6 or 7, especially if you're living in an area like we are here in Hong Kong, where we have access to a lot of different racing. Every weekend these kids can go and join social groups or go and do some racing. So what parents are actually doing now is using these balance bikes as a specific piece of equipment rather than just a learning tool that's going to help them transition onto a two-wheel pedal bike. They're actually keeping them on these balance bikes for a lot longer, enjoying them for a lot longer, using them for racing, using them for social gatherings, and it's a great way for a child to be able to get around quickly and efficiently without having a heavy bike to have to carry around it. So if you're watching this review, you might be considering buying an STR, you might be comparing them with other balance bike models or even other models in the Strider range. So today I'm going to show you all the good features and the bad features of this new Strider STR. Now let's get right into it. The Strider STR is a full carbon fiber balance bike. That's right, the whole thing is carbon fiber. The frame is carbon fiber, the fork is carbon fiber, the rims on the wheels are carbon fiber, and even the handlebars and seat post are carbon fiber. Now, what is the advantages of carbon fiber, you might ask? Number one, it is much lighter than aluminium or steel. All other balance bikes are usually either made of aluminium or steel. There are some wooden ones, but give those a miss. Aluminium or steel is going to be a little bit heavier than carbon fiber, and carbon fiber, as you can see by the shape of this little STR bike, can be molded into any form. And you can see the carbon fiber layup on this Strider STR is beautiful. The shape of this bike is absolutely gorgeous. The underside of this bike is perfectly smooth and formed, so it doesn't get hooked up on bumps and curbs like many other bikes do when the seat post or the seat tube sticks down through the bottom of the bike. So that is one very good advantage of having this carbon fiber bike. Now, it does come at an expense. Carbon fiber bikes are always more expensive than their aluminium or steel counterparts because it's a lot more expensive to manufacture. Now let's go over some of the good and bad points of this bike. First of all, let's go through the good points. The good points are, number one, it's carbon fiber. It is beautiful. And by having carbon fiber, it means it's going to be perfectly smooth and shiny on the outside. It looks very, very nice. If you have this bike, I guarantee all of the other kids who don't have one are going to be very envious of your little bicycle. Now that may be a good or a bad thing depending on where you live, so be careful with this one if you buy it, because it is not cheap. Hey Siri, how much is the Strider Bikes STR model? Okay, so the Strider brand STR model carbon fiber bike comes in at $899 US. Is that expensive? Watch to the end of the video and we will find out. Okay, some more good points. Obviously, being carbon fiber, this bike is going to be very, very light. Now, this is very well suited if you are going to be racing this bike. And yes, these kids race fiercely, especially over here in Asia. The racing scene is incredible, and actually having a slightly lighter bike can be actually quite advantageous if you're racing. Also, if you're very young, obviously the young children are not very strong. And one thing I noticed with my daughter when she got on this bike, she was only 16 months old, and I could very quickly see that she could actually accelerate the bike a little bit faster than her actual Strider Pro model, which is actually the next lightest bike. So being very light is actually going to be a very big draw card if you're considering purchasing this bike. Also, not only being very light, help the child manage the bike much easier. Don't forget, if your kid is very young, chances are when you take your child to ride the bike, you're going to be carrying it a lot of the time. So that's also a consideration for when you buy your bike. Mummy and Daddy is going to have to carry this bike a lot of the time. So the Strider bike brand has been renowned for having one of the bikes that can adjust the lowest. And what that means is the seat height can come down, so the standover height is very low. A lot of other bikes that are competing for this market have a seat height that's very high, that may be only suitable for a kid that's 3 years old and above to be able to ride. But the Strider bike, the seat can go very low. So my daughter at 16 months could ride this bike unmodified. So that's a good consideration as well for maximizing the amount of time on this bike if you're considering buying one for your very young child. Another one of the nice features of the Strider STR is the wheels. The carbon fiber rims are very nice, and they come with the Schwalbe brand tire. Now it's the Schwalbe Big Apple that comes fitted to this bicycle. Now keep in mind that this is a pneumatic tire, so it's going to be just like the tires on Mummy and Daddy's bicycle, where you have to pump them up with air, and generally you're going to have to put some air in these bikes, usually every 6 to 8 weeks. They will start to slowly go flat over time. So keep that in mind as well if you're looking to buy one of these bikes. They are much more stable and much safer when you're turning around corners because they have a lot more grip. The rubber tire on the floor or the road is going to offer a lot more grip for the kids when they're turning around corners, which is going to be good if they're racing around very fast as well. The Strider Pro and the Sport models come with a foam tire, and they're completely maintenance free. So you can park them under the bed for 6 months, get the bike out, and it's going to work. You're not going to have to inflate the tires. Now let's get to a few things that I didn't like about the bike. When you buy this bike out the box, you open the box, you see this beautiful red paint job, beautiful carbon fiber parts and components, beautiful forks. Everything is presented very, very well, and you feel good about your purchase. This is a beautiful looking piece of equipment. A lot of bikes that you buy, you'll see them in the catalog or advertised on the website. They all look very nice and shiny, but this bike when you get it home is gorgeous. It is like opening a little Ferrari. It is very, very well finished, second to none. Probably the highest standard I've ever seen on any balance bike. It is very, very nice. Now, that said, the paint, it chips quite easily. So when you get your bike, what I would recommend doing is putting some clear film over the frame, some sort of paint protection film over the frame. Now you can do this with some very thin, clear book contact, what you use to cover your books, and that's going to help quite a lot. And that'll stop pretty much all of the stone chips, or you can put some rubber guard over it, or wrap some tape around the areas that you think are going to chip. But that's one thing that I did notice, and that's not uncommon to every other carbon fiber bike as well. The adults, when I ride my expensive carbon fiber mountain bikes, the paint does chip quite easily on the carbon fiber bikes. It's just something that's inherent with carbon fiber. The paint is quite easy to chip, so be careful of that. When you get your bike new, definitely put some sort of film or paint protection over the bits that are going to chip easy around the rear axle and underneath the bottom of the seat tube. Is probably the most susceptible areas to getting paint chips. There's not much they can do about that, but when you buy a $900 US balance bike, it's a bit upsetting when you see the first paint chip, so keep that in mind when you get your bike. A couple of other things that I didn't really fancy on the Strider STR. The first one is going to be the stem. The stem for me is a little bit long for the size of the wheel. Now I can see why they've done that. It's going to give you a little bit more adjustability on the bike, so you're going to be able to use this thing for when you're maybe even 6 or 7 years old. You're going to have that longer stem, but it's a little bit long for my liking, and the stem is also quite heavy compared to all the components on the rest of the bike. That stem is quite a heavy component, so I did change mine. Something you can think about if you have one. Also, the wheels are nice. The rims are the lightest rims I've seen in carbon fiber, but the hubs on the bike are a STR branded hub, and they're a bit hit and miss. Sometimes they roll nice and smooth, some I notice don't roll smooth at all. Now I've had a few of these bikes through the shop. Some of the hubs spin nice and smooth and free, and the wheel can spin a long time, which is what you want, because you want the bike to roll nice and easy. And some, when you spin the wheel very fast, it only takes a few seconds to stop. Now for my mind, when you're buying a $900 US balance bike, one of the core features is going to be the hubs, and if they don't spin perfectly, it's a little bit annoying for my mind. It's a bit hit and miss, like I said. Some spin nicely, some don't spin nicely at all. You might be lucky and get 2 wheels that spin perfectly freely, or you might be unlucky that get 2 that don't spin that smoothly as well. So the hubs on the STR, they're not horrible, they're not beautiful, they're just kind of meh. And for me, I would have liked to have seen a slightly nicer hub. But now with those couple of things out the way, all in all, this bike is a gorgeous, beautiful little bike. Is this bike expensive? At $900 US, a lot of parents or people watching this video are gonna go, that is super expensive. Well, I don't like to comment on whether something's expensive or not because the word expensive is a relative term. It's relative to how much you're earning as a parent, how much time and effort you want to invest in having your kid ride a two-wheel balance bike. If you're living here in Asia and you're racing every weekend, then $900 US is going to be fairly reasonable. If you're comparing it to all the other balance bikes on the market, $900 is going to be expensive. If you leave this thing in a shopping trolley or the back of a taxi, then it's going to be expensive. It's up to you whether you think that's expensive or not, or whether you're willing to invest the amount of money that it takes to buy one of these Strider STR brand bikes. Now, the reason I've changed all of my components on this Strider STR is not because I didn't like the components or they weren't working properly. It's simply because my little daughter is a brand ambassador for this Japanese carbon fiber company that has all these aftermarket parts that you see on this bike in the video. So that's the only reason I changed everything. Otherwise, out of the box, you don't need to touch this bike. It is a beautiful little bike. And if you're a little racer, you can jump on this bike and have a bike that's capable of winning races. Well, that's it for my Strider STR review. So mummies and daddies, I hope this review helped you make up your mind whether you're going to purchase one of these bikes or not. And if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video with your friends. Right on, guys.